All right. It says we're live.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, there you go. Look at that. All right. I'm going to share this. Just sharing it on my timeline so people can see it out there. All right. Hey, everyone. We're live. This is Master Tim Watson in Delaware, and with my special guest, Master Dan Farrelly from Region 9. How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for this.
As well.
It's funny. I told you the other day, I looked back on Facebook and saw that we were friends since 2009 on Facebook. And I was trying to think of the first time we met. It was probably, I'm assuming, his master's clinic.
Probably we might have met because I did come to a couple of the Region 8 championships years ago, so it might have been at one of those.
Okay, it's quite possible.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of the first time I probably saw you, and I figured it out. It was probably the 2010 Worlds when you helped out with Grandmaster Beaudion's promotion.
Yeah, that was. I remember that because Grandmaster decided he wanted a couple people to do it, and they said, "Okay, you're going to carry the sword." I'm like, "Awesome, I'll carry the sword." They go, "Okay." Well, they give you this rounded, this flat sword, and they give you this pillow. I actually have it in the other room still. I still have the pillow, and they're like, "Now you got to walk the length of this convention center, holding this pillow, balancing this sword on it in the dark." I'm like, "Oh, God, this is just not going to go well." So literally the entire length of the convention center, I'm walking and going, "Don't drop it! Don't drop it! Don't drop it! Don't drop it!"
And you had a couple. I looked it up today. You had a couple of people in front of you too, right? You had like a kid right in front of you.
Yep, that's both of those were our other students. One of them was Rachel Bracco, and the other woman was Ellen Payne. And yeah, Rachel is she's actually one of our HDL students. She got into the HDL team. So
cool. And I've met Ellen. She's been to Master's Clinic, right?
Yeah, she just got her this would have been her fourth year.
Okay.
Yeah, so she got her. She tested 2 years, and then she just got her fourth on. So.
Yes, like I said, I looked at that picture, and I know how giant that place is. I think I helped carry a flag for like the region one year, and it's like, man, that's a long way.
It is a very long way. It's pretty impressive.
So obviously I jumped a little bit there, but do me a favor and just give us a brief history. Like I said, I did a little bit of research. I actually found one of the Masters profiles on the World Tung Sudo.
Yeah.
From I think it was 2014.
Yeah. So I've been training at Grandmaster Beaudion Studio. I started actually in the 80s, actually when it was still the Mutaquan, the Fist and the Wreath, when we were still under them before they fully transitioned out of there and into World Tung Sudo. There's lots of stories that I've heard from him over how all that happened and everything that happened there. But I was one of the first people at like age 6 he had, and I trained for maybe 2 or 3 years till I was probably about 8 or 9, and I got to, back then we had green belt. There was no brown belts. There was green belts with you had 2 stripes at green belt and then 2 stripes at red belt. And I got to green belt with 2 stripes, and I was in school. I was having lots of trouble. I I had undiagnosed dyslexia. I had a couple other areas that I couldn't. I had a lot of trouble getting reading under control. So I like, oh, I gotta stop. I stopped for several years until I got, able to, be a good student in school, because that's always the more important thing. And I went back in 1990. And when I went back, Grandmaster, being the person he was, recognized me immediately, talked to me, brought me back in. And he goes, okay, we'll start you as a green belt. Well, we'll start you as a green belt with 1 stripe instead. We won't put you back at brown belt. We'll put you at green belt. We'll go from there. And I said, no, I don't remember anything because I was a little kid, and you don't retain much sometimes when you're that young.
Right.
I'll start over as a white belt. So I restarted over as a white belt in 1990, and I'd been with him ever since. I met him, I trained with him just consistently from then on. And I ran his summer camps a couple of years when I was in high school, ran his demo team. When I kind of got out of college and graduated, I came back. Cause I was still active when I was in college, but I really was started training again after college. And I had just got my 3rd degree, just before that. And some of the older instructors that had been around, a master that he had that had been teaching for a long time with him just to decide to retire. And some of his other, the other senior rank that we had at that point decided they were going to become really less active. They weren't active in World Home. So they were teaching, they had a night, and they kind of got into the rut of, I teach Fridays. I just teach my 3 classes and then I'm done. And they weren't on the regional events. They weren't doing anything else. And so I was, just out of college. So I was young and energetic and excited. And I stepped right in there. I kind of took that position as his right-hand guy, and we kind of built it back up and kept everything going from there until I'm still there now. It's just unfortunately he is not, which is quite a shock.
Yeah. So when was, so we're talking like early 2000s when that was?
2001 was where I graduated college. So
okay, that's crazy. I actually started in 2001, and you were well on. Where were you, like a EDON at that point?
2001. I got my 3rd degree in 2000.
Okay, gotcha. Wow.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It was 2000 when 2000, fall of 2000 was I got my 3rd dan. And the interesting thing was in Region 9 for a long time, all the black belt tests happened at Grandmaster Studio for a long time, and then they started moving them around, and they were trying different things with them. At one point, the black belt tests, they said no one can watch black belt tests. They're going to be private. We're going to have a pre-test that everyone can go to. You can watch the pre-test, and we'll have a big promotion ceremony afterwards. But the test is nobody can be there. And that was my 2nd degree test was again at Grandmasters. And at that point, they started moving them everywhere. And somehow it worked out that all of them, up to obviously 4th degree, which was at the Master's Clinic, all of my tests, just whenever I got to a test, it happened to hit when it was at Grandmaster Studio. So somehow all of my tests up through that point were there.
Wow. Now, I didn't get a chance to go there when we were up for his funeral, but it's not a big place, right?
It is not. I have a video somewhere of my 1st degree black belt test, and there was 25 people testing. 20 people testing. I think it was 20 people testing for black belt. 3 people or 4 people testing for 2nd, and 1 person testing for 3rd. Actually, Master Couture from Cheshire, Region 9, she was testing for her 2nd degree, and I'm testing for my 1st degree. We tested together there, which was kind of fun. And and then whenever we had a test, we'd put chairs along the side walls of the studio, so you lose. However much a plastic chair is with a person sitting in it, you lose that much space. You put a table at the front of the room. Like they were having 4 people up at a time doing forms and weapons, and it was a packed house. It was crazy.
I can imagine. Hey, just real quick, I just wanted to thank everyone for watching. And if you have any questions for Dan, Master Farrelly, just put them on the stream here. We're going to talk. I'll look every once in a while. It looks like George and Debbie Berardi are here. Do you know George and Debbie?
Yeah, they're 2 of our students. 2 of our students. One's a 3rd degree, one's a 2nd degree.
Excellent.
George is even funnier because I taught both of them. since they were white belts. But George was actually my 6th grade science teacher.
All right.
Yeah, that was one of those fun ones. I'm actually going to share this video out while I found it off to the studios page.
Excellent. Yeah. I shared it out to my. I'm sure we have hundreds of mutual friends through World Tung Sudo, so I just shared it out there.
I could actually share it to the association's page, but I might get in trouble for that one.
So you mentioned Region 9, and nowadays I got to imagine that looks like Mr. Bracco said you demoted George.
Oh, he's the 4th degree now. Oh my God, Brad just got promoted. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, of course, I know George. I know who George is. Yeah, he just got his 4th on. George.
I'm sorry, George.
Hey, come on, Anthony. The quarantine, it's tough on all of us. So you mentioned Region 9, and I'm assuming that the test nowadays there'd be no chance of fitting in there.
No, not at all.
About the growth of Region 9.
Yeah, actually now we've been using Master Valentin's studio, because he has the large studio with the 2 sides, and we actually split the test on both sides of his studio. So that's been the go-to lately.
Nice.
Yeah, it works out. It's worked out well so far. So, although one year we tried it at our black belt clinic. I think it was at our youth black belt clinic. We tried it, and we're like, okay, for whatever reason, the timing of where we had to do it. We did the black belt test there, and we had it all set up, and we realized that, okay, it was the youth clinic, so all of the masters and the most of the 3rd dans and everybody went down and we're just running the test, and we left one adult black belt up top with the chaperones and the kids, and we're like, afterwards we're talking, we're like, that might not have been the best idea. 130 kids with like 5 adults.
Nice. I'm sure everyone survived.
We did. We started Master Valentin's bounce houses. We gave them cotton candy and snow cones, and they were fine.
Nice. How's the communication going up there in Region 9 right now with everything going on? Obviously, we've all transitioned as studios to online teaching. How's that going for you? Because I know you and Lauren are still working.
Yeah, we're both working. So Anthony Bracco, he's also helping Master T at his studio. So him and I have been sharing a lot of stuff together. So we've been splitting up between me, him, and also we've pulled in Master Porco Jr. So the 3 of us, our 3 studios, have been sharing the responsibility of doing 2 different Zoom classes a week. And Master Valentin's opened up all of his classes that he's running to anybody's students as well. So we're putting out a couple days a week of classes out to the students. So it's pretty exciting, and hopefully everyone's enjoying it, and where they're getting something from it. I'm struggling a little bit with it at times of trying to work the technique and work the stuff when I'm watching my students, and I'm seeing that they have maybe 3 feet between their couch and the chair and the TV and everything else. It's like, I can't have them do spinning hook kicks out there.
And a dog and a baby, a little sister, and
yeah. True. Speaking of the dog, because he's been being a little he hears people talking. He thinks we're talking to him. So
nice. Yeah, shout out to Master Valentin, and honestly, all the people that are working on sharing stuff online, because it's hard. I literally just got done teaching a class like 10 minutes ago, and I had to like walk outside to cool down, so I didn't listen as we talked.
So I noticed you guys a lot are doing it, doing them out of your houses and that kind of thing. Are you guys not allowed to go into the buildings or anything like that? Or
we can. For me, it's just been easier because I have space in my basement to do it. So I know like Master Kaluzny is still doing stuff out of the dojang. but like, you know, the Setiantos, they're here in Delaware, but their school's in Pennsylvania, so they can't cross. And I know like the Salonas are their schools in Maryland, but they're in Pennsylvania, and Maryland is pretty locked down. So yeah, they're not so lucky. So going back, you know, when you said that you started teaching with Grandmaster, gosh, almost 20 years now. Can you share some of the story, maybe a story or two about traveling with him?
So I actually started teaching for him way before that. That was just when I kind of took over and became his right hand guy with him. But I've had a lot. I did get to do some fun travel. I got to go a couple of good ones. We were when they had the first Qigong clinic in Pennsylvania at headquarters. Grandmaster was like, "Okay, Dan, let's go. We'll go down. Let's go to the Qigong clinic." I'm like, "Okay, sure. We'll go down and we'll check out. Hey, I'll get to see headquarters. I haven't ever seen that in Philly." So we went down there. We went to headquarters. It was just before. It was in the fall. I can't remember what month exactly. It was just before the first Latin American Masters Clinic happened. So and we go into headquarters. We go up the stairs up to the office where Maggie's office was and Grandmaster Shin's office was, and we go in to see and sitting in there with Grandmaster Shin, and he's like, and him and Grandmaster Beaudion are talking, and he's like, oh, and Grandmaster Shin always called Grandmaster Beaudion Bob. He's like, Bob, you don't go your Latin American Masters Clinic this year. You'll go next year. They don't ready for you yet. I need to go. And he goes, you go next year and bring Dan. It's like, oh, okay. So and it was a great Qigong clinic, and we did the Qigong clinic and went to a Korean restaurant afterwards for dinner. And we're driving home, and Grandmaster, for anybody who never had the opportunity to drive in a car with Grandmaster, he liked to drive fast. And he like if it took most people 15 minutes to get there, he was there in 10. he was a fast driver. And so we're driving back, and we're somewhere in Pennsylvania coming back, and we got pulled over for speeding. And maybe a month later, him and I and Lauren, I think, and Joanne and his wife Joanne were out to dinner. We're going somewhere, and Joanne was there, and she said something to him about getting a ticket, and he goes, Joanne, it's Dan's fault. He never told me to stop to slow down like you do. I'm like,
nice.
Thank you, sir. He goes, you always tell me to slow down. Dan didn't. It's his fault.
It's your fault, Dan.
Like, yeah, yes, sir, it's my fault.
Him and Master Godwin must have went to the same driving school, because Master Godwin is the same way.
Yeah. And then we got the opportunity. Then the next year we had the opportunity to go down to South America to the second Latin American Masters Clinic. And so I was going, Grandmaster, Master Valentin, and myself were all going down at the same time. And we flew down, and the year before, Master Valentin had some, with Master Enoshita going through customs, they had some trouble bringing all of their training equipment, all of the swords, knives, stabs, canes, all that stuff, going through customs to come into the country, because apparently, from the story Master Valentin way he tells it, is Master Enoshita, when they asked him what was in the bag, Master Enoshita said, "Oh, it's our weapons," and that said all kind of like, they were not wanting them to let a couple of gringos come in with some weapons for their country. So we were going through it, like, as we're like coming up there, Master Valentin just keeps going to both of us. He goes, "It's training equipment. When I say training equipment, it's only training equipment." Like, what they hear? Training equipment. They open up, they're like, "Okay, you're fine. Go through," because you have to bring it. What we used to travel with was a gun case. This is the only thing that would fit. We had like 3 swords and 2 collapsible stabs and knives, and the only thing you could fit it all in was a rifle case. So They're like, no, say it's that. But when we were flying down on that trip, we're sitting there and we get on the plane and it's December, flying out of JFK, and we're sitting there waiting. And they're like, it's just going to be a couple more minutes on the tarmac, and we're waiting. Half hour, 40 minutes goes by. They're like, oh, be a little. We're going to get going soon. Don't worry. There's a stuck engine ice valve, de-ice valve on the engine. We want to make sure it's working before we take off. Yes, please make sure the engine is working. We're leaving about 2.5, 3 hours late, and we get down there. When we get down there, we have to go from the local airport or the international airport to the local airport to fly to the town that the clinic was actually going to be in, Mar del Plata. And when we get there, we come out of customs everywhere else, and the people we're meeting down there, they're like, yeah, you guys missed the plane. Grandmaster Shin's already there. Everybody else is already there. You guys have to, take you to the other airport. They're going to rebook you, and you're going to get another plane. So we go to the other airport. We're sitting there. We're at the other airport. We have to wait like 4 hours or 5 hours in the second airport to fly down there. And we fly down to it's like a 6-hour drive, so it's like a 40-minute flight. So we could have, instead of waiting, if we had just driven, we would probably have been sooner. But we had to wait for the plane. And we get there. We get to the restaurant now. We had left, I think originally our flight out of JFK was 8 p.m. So it's a 10-hour flight with 2-hour time difference. By the time we actually got to the hotel in Mar del Plata, it was somewhere around 7 o'clock the next night. And then they were like, Grandmaster Shin wanted to go to dinner, but he wanted to wait for you guys. So drop your stuff off and come down. We're going to dinner. We're like, no, can we go to sleep?
Nice.
We go to our room, drop our stuff off, and we go walking out. And we had to walk like 4 or 5 blocks to the restaurant. We get to the restaurant's closed. It closed at 7 o'clock. No. We walked another 5 blocks to the next restaurant. But that trip was amazing. We got to that was also the trip. I'm not sure if you've ever heard this or heard this one was, so after the clinic got done, we trained for like 3 days. It was amazing because it was 18 people. So it was, Grandmaster Beaudion, Grandmaster Shin, Master Durko, Master Valentin, some really senior people. And then, 18 people and like 15 other people training or 14 other people training. So it was really amazing workouts and training. And when we finished, though, they said, okay, we're not going to fly back. We're going to get a bus because Grandmaster Shin wants everybody to see the country. So we got a little bus. Like, it was like the little shuttle you have at the airport. It's like, 6 rows of seats, because we only need 12 people. So it's like, oh, we're going to get on the Grandmaster Shin wants you to see the country of Argentina and how beautiful it is. Now, between Mar del Plata and Buenos Aires, there's cow fields and little villages and more cow fields. That's all there is. We're like, we could have seen this from the plane and not have had a 6-hour drive.
Nice.
And I think we left somewhere around like 2 in the afternoon, and to drive up there. We're about halfway. It's going to be like 5 o'clock, and everybody's hungry because we hadn't really had lunch. We had a late breakfast, no lunch. Maybe like 5 o'clock, we stopped to get some gas, and we go in there, and everyone goes to the bathroom, gets a drink of water, gets a bottle of water, this and that, and there's a restaurant in there, and everyone's really hungry, and we're looking kind of at Grandmaster Shin like sideways, like, are we gonna get to eat right now? And Grandmaster Shin looks at his watch, he's like, we can go another hour. Don't worry. So we're like, yes, sir. We're grabbing like candy and cookies. We're starving at this point. And we pile in the car and we start driving. Again, we stop about an hour later, this little roadside restaurant. And we go in, and there was Master Burgos and Master Saragosa. So there's probably about 8 of us that were there for sitting at dinner. And there's just plates of steaks and chicken, and it was just if you were a meatitarian, if you were in heaven. It was so much fresh poultry, fresh beef. It was amazing food, and everyone eats like crazy. And then we get there, and dinner's finished, and Grandmaster Shin said, he looks around, he goes, okay. He goes, nobody here to tell me I can't. I'm buying dinner. I have the association credit card. And he has it ready, and the guy walks over to the table, and he hands it to the guy. And the guy goes, I'll take credit cards. Grandmaster Shin looks at everybody, he goes, I have no cash. You guys pay. So everyone's like pulling out cash out of their pockets for dinner.
Nice.
So we hop back in the car. We're driving now. It's getting late, and everyone's getting really tired. So everyone's starting to kind of doze off in the car a little bit because we had this massive meal of
meat.
So everyone's getting a little tired. We're starting to doze off, and we're getting ready to pull into the last rest stop, the last toll booth going into Buenos Aires, and we start hearing something, and the Master Valentin with the guys from Puerto Rico on their back, and they're all whispering to each other. And then suddenly, we're looking like, you're sitting in the van, and you're looking like this, and suddenly it goes on the back side of the bus. Both of the tires on one side, because it was double tires on the back on each side. Both tires came off.
Came off.
One of them. Now, this is a massive toll booth. There's like a 14-lane toll booth, 7 on each side, because it's the main one into Buenos Aires, into the capital. And one of them goes sideways across 14 lanes of traffic, and the other one keeps going ahead of us, and it keeps rolling. And there's a car at the spot we were going to go into, and it slams into the back of the car in front of us, and bounces off and rolls away. And the guy gets out, and he's looking around. He's like, what happened? What hit me? There's a dent in my fender. He couldn't find the tire. The lug nuts had fallen off the tire. Lost all the lug nuts. So we're standing on the side of the road waiting for them to jack the car and find the tires and take lug nuts off all of the other tires and put them on. And the only phone that worked was Master Valentin. That was back when Nextel had the walkie-talkie feature.
Yeah.
And Master Valentin's phone worked. And for walkie-talkie, so he could walkie-talkie back to Mrs. Master, Rachel Valentin. And so he walkie-talkies her, and this is about 11 o'clock at night, so probably about 9 o'clock back here. And he's like, hey, Rachel, how's it going? She's like, oh, good. She's like, what's going on there? He goes, oh, the wheels just fell off the bus. Yeah, sure. No, seriously, how's it going? He goes, no, really. The wheels fell off the bus. And she's like, what? Yeah, and then they eventually put the tires on it. We had maybe a 10-minute drive to where our hotel was supposed to be. And it took us another 45 minutes to get there because every 5 minutes the guy had to stop and get out and retighten the lug nuts because they were completely stripped to keep the tires from falling off again.
I bet you guys were every time you hit a bump, you were like, oh.
Yeah. Oh no.
real quick while we stopped, I got a bunch of people are saying hi. We got Lynn Prifty. She said that's her favorite story. Yep. Amelia Schwartz said hi. Jordan Velez, Darren Offerdahl. We got a couple questions. If I could hit a couple questions. Tom Lyons asks, good evening, Master Farrelly. What is one of the most important things you have taken away from training with Quanjin Beaudion and Master Haney?
That's a really, really good question. I did get to actually train with both of them a lot. Because when Master Haney had trained for a long time, he was when he was a third degree, he stopped training for a long time. And when he came back, I think I was like a brown belt. He came back and he started his studio that he had in Oxford, and was teaching at Grandmaster. So he was one of my instructors for about a year before his studio in Oxford really took off, and he couldn't split his time like that anymore. And then my wife Lauren, that was her original instructor, was Master Haney as well. So I got to go and train with her and hit with him a number of times. But probably, for both of them, really it comes down to almost, it's not a technique or anything like that. It's both of them. Just Master Haney was exceptionally giving individual, and Grandmaster Beaudion was exceptionally giving. And just to be as kind and as try to be as good to everybody as you can, follow that. For me, trying to follow that example of them as people, martial arts techniques. They're both, they had so many things that they did. I used to say to Grandmaster, I'm like, you've forgotten more than some people will have ever learned. But and both of them were that way. But really, it's cliche to say, but it's be the good person that they both, and follow that example for both of them. Master Haney, when he passed away last year, his wake and his funeral had a tremendous number of people, and it was a huge, a large event. And then you got to see the wake and funeral for Grandmaster Beaudion, and just for those guys to have touched and have been cared for enough for people to come to those events the way they did for them, that just, it kind of shows you the character of those men. Kind of try to emulate that from them is probably the best, most important takeaway I'd probably get from either one of them.
Yeah, and it's one of those. It's like with Grandmaster Beaudion, I had some conversations and talked to him a couple times, and obviously knew he was a well-respected person. But then to go up to where he lived, and we were there for probably 5 hours during the visiting, and there was a line the whole time, and it wasn't just martial arts. It would seem like all of the surrounding area filed in to pay their respects, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, there's people that I hadn't seen that I had trained. I've been with them for almost 30 years, and there's people I hadn't seen in 20 years that had come to it. And there was people that were predated my time that had come to it, and it was funny. Master T and I were both standing there, and we're talking for a moment, and we're looking in the line of people that were at the wake, and we saw a guy, and we're like, who is that guy? He's like, Dan, who is that? I'm like, oh, he used to run the Police Athletic League tongue stroke group. It was a non-world tongue stroke group. And he's like, yeah. He goes, but I remember. He goes, yeah, oh, you're right. What's his name? I'm like, I don't remember. So what do you remember? I'm like, his students weren't that good. And I was just joking with him. He had some really good students. Actually, I went to college with one of his students. He was actually really good. But it was just one of those, like, I'm like, I needed to give a 10-seer breaker at that point, because the two of us were just, it was a tough few days there. So
yeah, I stood in line with a guy who was kind of like that. Who his name was Jim. I think someone called him Jimmy. I think he said he was like a second-degree black belt that kind of bounced in and out.
Yep. Jim Regan, I think was his last name. I think. Yep, I remember Jim. Yeah.
So yeah, we stood in line together for like an hour and just chatted on and off.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So Master Malbrook has a question for you. He says, what motivates you to continue the path of martial arts? Did you have a defining moment where you said to yourself, this is a journey I want to take for my life? What was that moment?
I don't necessarily think there was one moment that I can think of. There's lots of little moments. I've been fortunate to have lots of really amazing experiences and met a lot of amazing people that have kept me going. Probably initially I started, for reasons a lot of people do. My older brother was doing it, and so it's like, okay, well, he's my older brother. My older brother's cool, so I'm going to follow him. And then I was doing that, and then I generally hate to leave things unfinished. I had quit when I had quit to do school. I'm like, I wanted to go back, so I went back in 1990. It was just after my my mom's mother, my grandmother, had passed away, and the only grandparent I had left at that point was my grandfather. And I said, okay, well, I'm gonna get my black belt before my grandfather passes away. I want to make sure, I want him to see that, and he actually got to see me get all the way up to my 3rd degree. So he got, I managed to do pretty good on that respect. But I've had lots of amazing events and moments. Going to your the first world championship. The first time you go to a world championship is just always amazing. That was in Orlando when they had them at the convention centers down there, and that was just like, oh my god, this is so huge, and there's so many people. The first year probably your first year going to the master's clinic, when you enter into this whole other world in some ways of the training there and the camaraderie. And I met a lot of people and knew a lot of people visually. I'm sure visually I probably might not even known your name, but I saw visually saw you, or like visually saw Master Mobrook, and I know that guy, but we never communicated or talked or anything because it's just timing. But you go to the master's clinic, and suddenly now you enter, you suddenly get closer to people and get that. South America, going to the Latin American Masters Clinic was a lot of fun. I went to Europe, which was a lot of fun as well. But the Latin American one was such an intimate experience. That was really amazing. And when I was down there, they were having, because like a lot of places do, they try to cram everything into a weekend or a couple of days when they have the senior masters or grandmasters there. So they had their they had the master's clinic, they had a black belt test, they had a tournament. So they tried to cram everything in those couple of days, and we were going to check out where the tournament was gonna be. We were down there. We went to a Chinese restaurant, and even the Chinese restaurants have giant grills of beef in them in Argentina. And we go to the Chinese restaurant, and we walk over to the venue that the tournament's going to be in. And while we're looking around the place, Master Valentin comes over to me and goes, Dan, how good's your Korean? I'm like, Korean's really pretty good, I think. He goes, okay, they want you to help do a part of the black belt test, but only talk in Korean because they won't understand your English and you don't understand Spanish. Yes, sir. So I had to help do one of the black belt tests down there, just everything in Korean. I think I did kicking, and it was that was a pretty wild moment, getting that opportunity. But
one of those things where you probably don't realize it's going to happen, and then you're like, okay, I guess we're doing this.
And it was funny also because I had brought all my gear to compete, because I never competed very often. I was not a big competitor. I competed, the last time I competed was the world championship in maybe 2004. I think, and it was funny because I competed in one of our regional black belt. She was a black belt at the time. Came up to me, she's like, Mr. Dan, I never seen you compete before. I'm like, well, it tells you a lot how often I competed. You're a black belt now. You haven't seen me compete in the whole time you've been going through the ranks. But I brought all my stuff down to South America. I was gonna compete. And I was ready. I'm like, okay, one last time I'll compete, or not even one last time, one more time. Like, when am I going to be down here again? Let me compete. And Grandmaster Beaudion comes over to me like the day before, and he goes, Dan, he goes, I know you wanted to compete, and we had you signed up and everything, but Grandmaster Shin wanted somebody that he could talk to during the tournament, and just have somebody with him they can communicate with. Can you do security for him? So I'm like, okay, sure. Yes, sir, I'll do that. And then it turned out we got back from that tournament and that trip, and then I had gotten my invite to the Masters Clinic like 2 weeks later. So apparently I didn't mess up while I was doing security. If I had, I probably got the invite.
That was your last test. I got a couple more things here. Debbie, She said, "What about the time George went to World Championships and he had his training stuff in his plumbing tube?" We have one. Actually, we have one of those. It looks like a giant pipe bomb.
Yes, that's what we used to call it. Because if you're have to take like staffs or something down there, yeah, you just get a big piece of plumbing tube and you tap it at both ends. It does. It looks like that.
Yep. I found the key, the lock to it yesterday, and the kids are asking. She also asked, if there's one thing you could change and do differently, what would that be?
Change or do differently, what would that be?
Check the tires on that the bus before you got.
It made a good story having the tires come off.
That's true. That's true.
That's the thing. When sometimes when bad things happen, they end up giving you as long as no one ends up getting hurt, it ends up being good in the end.
Right. You definitely you made lifelong brothers on that trip.
Yeah. Master Burgos and Master Saragossa are just like, hey, how are you? Let's not get into a van again. I don't know a good something. Nothing jumps out at me as like that was a really bad thing. I have to change that.
Sure.
There are things I regret, but those are like, hey, we should have done this earlier. We should have done that. But something significant, like that. I try not to, to carry too many of those with me. I try to, learn from those things and move forward because they happen for a reason. The week my second year going to the master's clinic, it was a week before the clinic. It was a Friday night. I think it was a Friday night, I think it was a Friday night. We had gut testing that Friday night. Lauren was at the test with us. We did the test. I drove her back to her parents' house. I dropped her off. I'm driving home. I had a Jeep Renegade at the time. I started to get a little tired. My eyes started closing, and suddenly the road bent on me. It should have been going straight. The road just bent on me. It wasn't very fair. And a telephone pole jumped in front of my car. And I slammed right into it. I fell asleep driving, hit a telephone pole, and then my car spun sideways and hit a tree. And thankfully that tree was there because there's a really big ravine right there. Otherwise I would have gone down the hill. And, should I, it was not fun that, I totaled my car and, I was, the things that happened from it, but hey, I was fine. It's a car can get replaced.
Sure.
Went to the master. It's not like I didn't go to the master's clinic. I went to the master's clinic. In fact, my kicks were really, really good that year because I had muscle relaxers for the soreness, and I have the doctor gave me muscle relaxers. I could kick up. I was kicking like Master Mobra that day because my muscles were so flexible.
What is it with you and the Region 9 Masters and muscle relaxers at Master's Clinic? I remember the Master Valentin story where he pulled his leg. Let's see. I wanted to. So a while ago, one of our team instructors asked me. She was like, "What do you think about having a master as a wife or having a black belt as a wife?" She's like, "Is that weird?" I'm like, "It's the best thing ever because we're going to go to, we go all to the other, we go everywhere together. And I don't have to be like, hey, I'm going away for a weekend." So, to you, how awesome, important, cool is that to be able to share all this stuff that you do with your wife?
It is really, really fun. It is really exciting a lot of the times. And it was funny because we are a little bit separated in rank. She's a little bit behind me in time and grade, but she
I know how that feels.
we were like, for example, she was we had our regional championships for a number of years, and before she got invited to go to the Masters Clinic, she was the first Region 9 female to win the Women's Cup 3 years in a row. And I was actually taking, trying to help Master Valentin out and give a little break on everything. And I was doing the judging assignments, and I'm like, and he's like, and I want this, always the first two, the right next in front of the head table. He always puts, the men's division, the women's division, because those, he always wants the Grandmasters to be able to watch them. And so I always made sure that I assigned myself to a ring as far away from there as I could, because I didn't want anyone to have any question of impropriety or anything like that, because it's always awkward, and I never want to have it. But so I always put myself down the end. But watching her win it 3 years in a row was amazing. And the nice thing is that she excels at certain things. I excel at certain things. I'm sure you and your wife are similar, that you guys each have parts that complement each other, that you're better at one thing and she's better at the other. So that's really, really, really nice and enjoyable.
Cool. I remember one year I was competing and she was my center judge, and someone was like, "Oh, you're so lucky you got your wife as your center judge." I was like, "Have you met my wife?"
Oh no, that would not be good.
All right, we're gonna hit a couple of fast ones because we're coming at like 46 minutes. I don't want to go forever. So let's see, where was it? Tom Lyons again. As an instructor, so I'm gonna kind of double up. So Tom asked, as an instructor, what's your favorite thing about teaching? And Master Mobrook also said, what is your favorite part of Tong Soo Do? Forms, weapons, staff, sparring, or what do you gravitate towards the most? So kind of hit both of those together, if you would.
My favorite thing to teach, I enjoy almost all of it. I enjoy breaking stuff down, and talking about technique and talking about things. Like Master Molinaro, I give him a call. It used to be every week. It depends on how things are going. Usually we'll talk once or twice a week, and him and I will get into really detailed conversations of just the concepts behind stuff. Not even just the understanding of how one thing feeds into another and feeds into another. And he always talks about it's a circle where you start to understand, you can apply it. You start to understand, you can apply it more. That gives you better understanding, and you can keep going in a circle with these things and understanding and digging into forms and one steps. What's the purpose of them? What's the purpose of the spots in your form? Where we can come up with the, you can watch the videos on YouTube of, various people with fun accents. And that's a good point if anybody wants to use. If you want to have instant credibility, have an accent different than the people you're teaching. They'll automatically assume you know what you're talking about. You start talking with like an English accent, Australian accent, people will instantly think you know everything you're talking about. You could be completely fake, but can believe you because you have an accent. That's equal authority. But I enjoy weapons, forms, like I said, everything. You talk about like Lauren. She's precision. She'll break your stance, your hand positions, all those things down tremendously. Me, I'm going to try to talk to you about the concepts and the ideas behind everything. I was really excited for the Masters Clinic this year, because Master Vittori and I were going to do, I think, Wan Shu with one of the groups for the Formers breakout, and I had done it at our Black Belt Clinic last year. Because as Region 8, you guys have tons of 4th degrees and above at your Black Belt clinics. And in the last couple of years, we've started to grow to the point where we have a lot at our Black Belt clinics. And we said, well, all of them are here, and they're just kind of hanging out while other people are teaching. Let's make them train. We'll give them some practice. They're here. We might as well do some stuff with them. So I broke down Wan Shu for like an hour, and we might have gone over about 3 times, going over just understanding of where the power comes from, what the technique, some of the techniques and how they work. So that was a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, it's always nice to have a group to work with there. And like you said, it's cool especially when you're usually so busy teaching, you actually get a chance at a clinic to work together. Let's see. I got Darren. Darren offered. I'll ask. Was there ever a time at Edon or Somdon that you thought about leaving? If so, what kept you going?
Thankfully, I really didn't much because the Edon to Somdon time frame was kind of when I was the Edon into Somdon time frame was when I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at the University of Connecticut, which is about an hour or so from where we live, little more, little less, depending. Maybe an hour 15. But I was far enough away that I wasn't coming to class every night, but I could still come home on a weekend and get the class or two, and I could come back for regional events. I could still be involved, but I wasn't there day to day. I could practice on my own in my dorm room or go to the gym or practice. And then when we had an event, I could come back for it. So
right.
I got that. I think sometimes what happens, especially with the teenagers, when they get that Edon and Somdon, they're doing it so much. They're doing it 4, 5, 6 days a week, and they get burnt. They just get so burnt out when they go off to college and there's no karate nearby. There's no Tong Soo nearby. It's just they completely get out of it, and they're like, well, it's hard to get back into it at that point because they've left it so much. But I had the fortunate that I was able to have sort of a break, but still be involved and still close by, that I could still do things.
Nice. Yeah. Someone asked me that the other day too. And for me, I was an adult. I was 21 when I started. So, and I kind of got sucked in and made friends with, Master Priest. I came for Buddy Day with him. That's how I got started. And then, I met Jeff and I met Muhammad and Dante Davis and those guys kept me motivated to keep working. Let me see. Is there anything else here? Debbie says, I remember when I was George's instructor. I'm sure you do as well, sir. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? I think we covered a good bit.
I'm always happy to keep talking because it's just a lot of fun to talk about some of these things, and it's been hi sweets, you're over there, buddy. And just getting to, I think that's one of the fun things is just getting to know people and talk to people about this stuff and getting, there's lots of so many stories of different times, like some of the Masters playing stories that happen, the ones we can tell. There's the ones we can't tell publicly, and but there's the ones we can talk about,
right.
And the black belt clinic stories and training, and there's so many times with Grandmaster that we they got to have times with him, and it's we all of us have been so lucky to have been in World Tong Soo Do, and have time with Grandmaster Shin, have had time with Grandmaster Beaudion, and now time with Grandmaster Strong. We're all very, very lucky. One thing that I will mention, I'll give you guys a little info on, is that it's not there just yet, but there is going to be a new World Tong Soo Do website coming out very, very soon. They're working on a couple things with it, and it should be pretty. It is going to be pretty exciting when it comes live. That was something Grandmaster Shin or Grandmaster Beaudion and Master Valentin kind of pushed when I took over the web committee, was we got to get a new website. We got to get up to date, and it's going to be completely mobile friendly. It's going to have some really exciting features for some of the masters and studio owners when we get it going. So it's going to be pretty cool. That should be happening pretty soon.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, I think that's a good place to stop, Dan. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate you taking the opportunity to do this with me. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for your stories.
Absolutely, no, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, I'll talk to you later, and again, thanks again. Tong Soo.
Tong Soo.
See ya.